Hey y'all, it's Jamie with Color Flutter Creations, and today I am feeling loved. While Valentine's Day is over, that doesn't mean that the love stops, and this can be a card that's used for friends, family, your children, it doesn't matter, your spouse. This is a really great card to give to anybody that you love. So I'm using some holographic cardstock from scrapbook.com and their holographic pack. There are some, embellished kind of options as well as some plain options in silver and gold. And then I'm going to be using the Echo Park Love Note 6x6 paper pad as well. I've had this a long time. If it is still available, I'll make sure that's linked in the description. I am then going to use this heart-shaped die that has this sentiment strip that goes right along the center of it. That's going to make an appearance on the front of our card. And then we will go ahead and use the Pixi Dust Designs Valentines Puppy Stamp and Die Set. I love this set. It is really, really cute. And again, just because it's Valentine's Puppies does not mean that you have to use it during Valentine's Day. You can use this all year round. It's got balloons, presents. There's lots of ways that you can use this. So birthdays, again, a lot of ways. Then I am using from the new Pixi Dust Designs release a pop-up card A, which is a mechanism type set. This set allows the receiver to open up the card and have a pop-up feature. So there's hearts and squares, there's outline of each of those, as well as this stitched inner portion that lays over, of course, that outline. The outline giving it a really nice, cute border onto, the card and what you're layering over. Then we have this mechanism piece. The mechanism piece has these embossed line areas, and we'll be showing you how to put this together a bit later. Another piece that comes in the pop-up card A set is another outline and stitched die, and it's a little bit bigger. It's this bigger kind of rectangle, and that is to be used for a sentiment. I've got my Spellbinders Platinum 6 die cutting machine out, and I have that first heart up there on some red cardstock, as well as on some white cardstock, the sentiment strip that goes into the center of that heart, and the mechanism. So the heart kind of gets cut apart, but I've got an idea of how you can use this. Take a sentiment, cut it out. It comes in the set already, and then you can put that into the center. I also think it would be kind of cute if you made this into, with some fuzzy cutting, made it into an arrow, but don't throw away those little pieces. Keep them, put them aside, and then you can use them and there is no waste. Otherwise, this piece is going to lay right directly into the center of that heart. And then we have that mechanism set, like I mentioned before, and it's right here with all of those embossed fold lines that you can see. I have a dual color card base here. The outside is kind of pink and then the inside is a darker pink. And this I want to add some dimension to. So I'm going to be using the Spellbinders Tiny Dots embossing folder just to create that added interest in dimension onto the front of my card base. I'm going to take a look at my platform for my die cutting machine because that's going to tell me the sandwich that I need. Now, sometimes I have other embossing folders that, of course, are not Spellbinders, and I'm wondering, how do I use those? I actually got a nifty little, I don't know, piece of paper, chart, whatever it is, from my crafty mama, and it shows me exactly what sandwiches I need depending on the different embossing folders that I'm going to be using. So as you can see here, there's embossing, sandwiches for embossing folders by Altenew and Crafter's Companion. And so I'm not exactly sure where she got this. If I can find it, I will make sure that I provide a link to where she was able to print this out. Spritz some water onto the front of my card base, and I'm going to stick that front panel into my embossing folder just up to the bottom line. Here, hopefully you can kind of see that, and I can still fold the card panel back, and that tells me I've got it exactly where I need it to be. I'm then going to run this through my die cutting machine, and it is going to add that wonderful tiny dots embossing all over the front of my card base. Here's all that wonderful texture on the front of our card base. That looks amazing. I really do love the tiny dots. Now I'm ready to stamp my little puppies, but I first put some scrapbook.com mixed media paper into my Misty stamp positioning platform. The reason why I'm using this is because I wanted a thicker cardstock that would hold up to the alcohol markers that we're going to use to color our little fun puppies. To stamp my puppies, I find it easier to actually use the outline die. So this set is connected. I did not take apart the individual dies out of the set. Now the bow, there is a bow here in the set, and that die was actually in one of these other dies somewhere. So what I did was I popped that one out, but left all the rest of them together. And I find this a little bit easier when I'm putting the stamps into the center to position everything, because then I can die cut it a little bit easier and cleaner without having to position each of those dies individually. So I'm going to put the die down onto my cardstock, and then I'm going to take each of the coordinating stamps that go with it, and I'm going to inlay those. It's really not difficult to do this. I find this to be a really useful, easy technique. Sometimes the stamps can stick to your fingers a little bit, but for the most part, they don't. When I position them within the die, I'm making sure that the edge of the stamp is secure against that edge of that die. This way I know it's really center, and when I then go to die cut my stamped images, it's gonna die cut really clean with those stamped images in the center. I know sometimes I have a hard time lining up the die after I've stamped images. And because the bow doesn't have a die on here, I'm just going to take the bow stamp and I'm going to position that where I want it before I close the door on my Misty to pick up all of the stamps. I can then remove, after that, I can remove the actual die, that outline die as you saw, and then I can take my Altenew Obsidian pigment ink and I can use that to stamp my images. And then I grab my Wow Heat tool. It has two heat settings. One is good for, standard drying of inks and sprays, and the other one, which is the setting we're going to use, is really great for melting the embossing powder. So I'm going to ink up my stamp. I'm going to close the door on my Misty, and that is going to stamp the images really nice and crisp onto my cardstock. I may have to do it again just because I like to double stamp. I don't know why. I know sometimes you don't need to, but I do. I don't know. I don't know if it's just a nervous habit or because I just want it to be a little bit darker. I'm not quite sure. One good thing about the Altenew ink as well, because it is pigment based, it does stay wet a little bit longer, which allows me then to take my nice little cardstock over to my embossing powder, and then I can dust it ever so nicely with the embossing powder before drying it with my heat tool. So you'll see that these puppies stamped really cute and really nice. I still need to ink and do some embossing powder for sentiment. And I have this little, I don't know, sentiment positioner deal. It's really nothing majorly fancy. My crafty mama watched Jennifer McGuire a long time ago, and she had a video on creating this. So we created some for myself because I cannot do anything straight, as y'all know. Nothing in my life is straight. So how this works is you place your sentiment into the little opening of this positioner deal. I don't know what you call it. And then my sentiment lays across it. What's really nice about this is if you're going to mass make sentiments, you can take this out, put a new sentiment strip in, and then you can keep stamping and embossing and stamping and doing your embossing over and over and over again. So it really keeps everything nice and aligned. For this sentiment, I am going to use the Hugs and Kisses stamp from the stamp set. So I'm going to put a piece of acetate over my sentiment strip though first to protect the sentiment strip from getting any residual ink that may have been left on the sentiment from when I used it before. I don't do anything straight. We know this. I've said it already. I can't say it enough, but I'm going to try and position this as centered horizontally and vertically as much as possible, which is why I grab my little pokey tool. It kind of helps me a little bit be able to, just make sure I've got it as close to center as possible. I think that I actually might have gotten this pretty darn centered. So yay! I'm gonna pick up the stamp with the lid and I'm gonna keep the acetate there before inking up, well, wait, not with the lid. I need to ink up the stamp with the actual ink pad, and then I can go ahead and stamp onto that acetate sheet that is still within my positioning tool. And I think that looks really good. Yay me! I'm going to call that a win. I can now remove the acetate and I will clean that up here in a minute. So I'm just going to put that to the side, but I can re-ink my stamp and then stamp back down onto my sentiment. I powder that and then I'm going to heat set that embossing powder and get it all nice and melty. I then move on to die cutting some more. I need the inside stitched pieces for my hearts and my inside sentiment of my for my card, and so I need that larger rectangle stitch piece as well. So I cut that heart out twice. That's one thing to remember. You need to cut that out twice. And then I need to cut out another piece of the outline big rectangle, and that's going to go on the front of my card. So I've got those pieces die cut, and then I'm going to actually do some additional die cutting, sort of. I have a scrap piece of paper here that I'm going to put on the inside of this, and that is going to have my inside sentiment. But I want it to be pretty, I don't know, even, I guess, as possible. So I'm not great with math. Math is not my friend. Measurements are not my friend. So I'm just going to use a little tick mark and to kind of tick where I need to cut this longer piece. It's about a pinky width on each side. So that's what I do. I cut it down and it actually looks pretty good. Like it's going to lay in there really nicely. But I want to keep the stitching on this. So I'm going to take that large rectangle die that is the inside stitching one, and I'm going to use that to add the stitch marks around the edge of what this sentiment cut piece is going to be. It's not that difficult to do. And I'm so sorry, but you are going to see my head pop in. There it is. Don't judge me. You can count the grays, but don't judge them. It's God's glitter, right? I digress. So I'm going to take the cardstock. I'm going to put it right in one of the corners, but just on the inside of that. So I'm going to actually flip this over so I can see it a little bit better. And I'm putting it again just in the corner right up to where the cut lines would be. And this way it's not cutting my cardstock, but it's just going to give me the nice stitching. So there you go. That's what I'm doing. I'm going to then run this through the die cutting machine and it puts that stitching there. I then do it on the other side as well. And then you'll be able to see the stitch all the way around. Because this is stitched, when I turn it to the other side to add the stitching, it may actually cross on those two corners that have already been done. So just one thing to kind of think about, but it's not going to affect it or make it look weird or anything like that. It's going to look just fine. It did flatten out one side of the stitching because it was run through the die cutting machine without the die being in that space, but you can still see it really good, so I'm not worried about it. It doesn't need to be perfect. Perfectionism is not what we do here. I now have my little piece I'm going to put into my stamp positioner tool, and I'm going to use this puppy love sentiment. This isn't a Valentine's Day card. It's just a love card. So, it's after Valentine's Day. But this is going to be a good sentiment, again, to give to, my spouse whom I love so much. And there we have our sentiment, puppy love, puppy love. I can then take the outline die and put that around my puppies as well as my bow and get those die cut out. As you can see, it's very simple. It goes on really easy and it just lines up beautifully. So it's a really great technique if you have not done that before, where you use the outline die to position your stamp before you actually stamp and then die cut. And these have just cut out beautifully. And here's our little bow. Before I move on to coloring, I wanted to show you that there is the negative spaces from our die cut, and you could use this to inlay the stamps and use it in the future. So if your outline dies don't allow you to do what I showed before, keep this and then you can use it in the same manner. I have all the critters ready to be colored. That cute little bow can go on an ear. It could just be used in a lot of different ways, actually. But we're going to use Olo alcohol markers to color our puppies. And I do not have a ton of these. I really like them though, but I'm not the best at alcohol marker coloring. So, I am taking my time and building my collection of these Olo markers. Once I put on my glasses so I can actually see what the heck I'm doing, because to me this is pretty small, I like to start with the darkest color that I'm going to use. This is going to what is going to create the shading or shadowing, and then I can come in with the lighter color to kind of blend it together. There are many creators in our space that are excellent at alcohol marker coloring. I believe Mindy Egan is one of them that I've watched several times. Olo actually has their own videos too, where they will show you some different techniques and ways to get the best blending, I guess, with their markers. I like them though. They do come out, I would say, pretty easily. So in some of the small areas, you just barely need to touch the tip, and it's like that alcohol ink just kind of runs, and you don't need a lot or you're going to saturate your cardstock too much. And this is why I wanted to use mixed media paper for these puppies. You can tell here that I'm kind of going over those darker shadow areas that I did first, and I'm using this lighter color to kind of blend a lot of those together. I hope you're able to see how that's kind of blending, and I'll just keep using the lighter color and kind of going over it to build color or to blend color, depending on, how I want to actually have this look. If I want it to be darker, you can keep going over the color and it will darken. So just like we do with our ink pads, the alcohol marker does the exact same thing. You're just laying down ink. The only difference with these is you're going to saturate your paper way quicker than using a standard, distress oxide or any kind of pigment or dye ink. I had some alcohol marker run outside of my little lines. So I have this kind of micro tipped Q-tip looking thing. And I just want to try and push some of that alcohol marker ink back into the lines. So Olo has what they call a zero marker, and it seems to be just alcohol and the tip of it that you would use to push that back. That's what I have gathered from some of the videos I've watched. I do not have a zero marker though by them, so I'm using this little trick and it actually looks like it worked. So, I mean, is it perfect? No, but again, we're not about perfectionism here. So I just dip the tip into a little bit of alcohol and then I'm dabbing that onto my cardstock in kind of a pushing inward motion towards the inwards of those lines to get that ink back where I want it. I can then come back in with the same alcohol marker color that I was using and kind of blend that back out a little bit so it's, doesn't have quite, I guess, a spot, like a water spot or stain kind of look to it. And, puppies, animals, they are not all one color. Even if they have shadows, there's usually some shading and other blotchiness to them. So just like my gray hair, they may have other color hair too. So I don't overthink stuff like this at all. It is going to be what it is going to be, and we're going to love it no matter what, and it's going to look great. I'm adding a little bit of red just kind of where the mouth is. And I know it's hard to see. You're not going to be able to see it very well on camera here. But I then want to go in with a little bit of kind of this teal color. And I have learned to do kind of a flicking motion with the tip. So when I'm putting it down, especially in some larger areas or areas that have maybe some curvature to them, I kind of flick in that direction with the tip of the marker. I can then go back in and blend with my lighter color. I'm doing the same thing here, which I realized I probably should have used another darker pink. It was a little too monochromatic for me. I wanted there to be a little more depth to it, but instead what I did was I kind of went back over it with the darker color just in a couple of areas to hopefully create a little bit more shading. But I think that this little guy turned out really cute. What a cute little puppy. Look at him there, or her, or they. I love it though. I think it looks really good, and I'm pretty pleased with that. I'm going to finish these, and then I'll be back in a jiff. I have the puppies done and we're going to start working on putting some elements together, but I think these puppies really turned out very cute. The darker one is actually using the exact same colors. I just went over the color a few more times to add make it a darker shade. So like I mentioned earlier. And then that other one I added with a little white gel pen, some highlights and little dots just to give, I don't know, something a little bit different and unique to that little puppy. We can now begin working on the assembly of our card. So first I'm going to put some liquid adhesive onto the overlay rectangle piece that's going to go onto that outline, or that piece that creates the outline. And I'm going to make sure that that's as centered as, I can get it to be. It's not probably going to be completely straight, but whatever. And I like the edge on that. So I don't know if you can really tell, but it's very subtle, but it creates a nice impact. I then put that hugs and kisses sentiment right into the center of our heart on that little sentiment strip area. I'm going to do the same thing with all of these other elements. So both hearts, and then again, the rectangles that you see there to the right of my craft mat. I take a couple of white card panels I have, and I want to actually put those on the inside of my card. Because the mechanism itself is cut out of white cardstock, I want the inside card panels to match that. This way, when the recipient opens the card, they don't see the mechanism, hopefully, as quickly. We can now get our mechanism piece going. So let me put this stuff aside, and then I'm going to grab my little mechanism piece. And as you can see, all of those embossed lines, that's going to tell us where to fold it. So the two tabs, one on each end, I'm going to fold backwards or inwards, depending on the way your brain wants to think about it. And then the center between the rest of the space, I'm going to also fold inward or back. This way, my tabs are what are going to stick to my card, and then I have these other two kind of square pieces, but that's the way it's going to sit in there. Hopefully you can see that. Let me kind of see if I can show you. So the center crisscrossy kind of piece here, however you want to call that, I need to have the point sticking up. So I'm going to go ahead and fold back on each of these embossed kind of lines. So one side, then this next side, and then right down through that center one as well. And then I can take my fingers and push inward on the sides while I help the back and the front pieces to fold in so that point goes up. I hope you can see that and saw how I did that piece. But this is the way it's actually going to look. And then our hearts go onto this back piece. And then as you open the card, they go from this kind of side to folding upwards. So they'll come together on each side. But first, I need to get my mechanism actually glued down. So I'm going to put some glue on this bigger tab. At least to me, it's the bigger tab, and that is also the bottom tab. So I'm going to put that right up to the crease of my card base here because I need it to kind of be flush. So hopefully you can see this here. I'm going to then hold it down so that it adheres really firm. I want it to be very firm and really dry so that it doesn't pop up. I then fold my mechanism because I want my card to fold completely flat. I found it easiest to fold the mechanism, hold it down, and then put glue just on that edge. Oh, I accidentally went a little, let me get that. Okay. Okay, and then I want to hold this down for a little bit because again, I want both of those tabs to be really stuck onto my card. And then here is what that mechanism looks like. Now, it's easiest to actually put these hearts on to those back tabs when the card is kind of closed like this. So let me go and put one on, and then I will kind of come back and show you how to put the other so you can see the reference. This way I'm not going in and out of frame a whole bunch, but you have reference. Okay, so here it is. When you open up the card, we're going to see the heart swing inward. So it opens, and try and take a look at the mechanism as well, but see the heart coming inward. So that's going to happen on the other side as well. It just kind of close, open, close, open. Now, I again find it easiest to put this on when it is slightly open. So the heart itself on the back, I'm only going to put glue in kind of this bottom corner area because that's the part that's going to be touching that back tab piece. And I don't want glue squeezing out everywhere. You could technically put it on this little back, that's the back tab we're going to adhere this to. And I guess you technically could put glue there, but I found it a little difficult to try and figure out exactly what it was gluing together without glue going everywhere. So this is the easiest way I figured out. And so I'm just lining it up, trying to actually make a line between the heart with the heart on the other side. And hopefully you can kind of see, I'm trying to get y'all in there, but once I have it lined up, I'm going to then keep it kind of closed and make sure that that heart is stuck. So let me try and give it another extra little squeeze here, squeeze here. And then when I open it, oh no, see, okay, I either didn't have enough glue or I really didn't hold it long enough. That's what I didn't do. So see, you have to really kind of hold it down to make sure that glue has completely adhered. So I've adjusted, I'm getting it lined back up, and I'm just gonna like continue to hold that. I'm just peeking here. I'm peeking because I just want to make sure I didn't accidentally move the heart. Let's test it. Let's see. And there's our hearts coming in. Now, hopefully you can see that. See how they go out? They come in, out, in. Oh, I think that is so cute. What a fun mechanism. And when the card is open, you can actually have it on display like this. So it'll stay up, but you can see this mechanism here. And I think that was a pretty good angle for you to see it. Can you see it? And then that's the front if it's on display, and that's where the sentiment goes. So, but before we do the sentiment, I want to get my little puppies on there first. So I'm going to start with the inside, and I want the balloon puppy to be on the left, and I want that balloon heart to be in that center because it's going to be bringing its balloon over to the other puppy that is holding the envelope, bringing the card. But I need it to be here, and that I need to make sure that the balloon is centered. So I want to get this puppy on there first. So let me take this, and do I need it over? No, I don't. I'm trying to make sure it's not going to peek out of the side. It's not, and it's not. So, okay. Yep, that's where I need it. Okay, let me get some glue, put some adhesive on this, and then I'm going to stick it down, and I'm going to make sure that that heart is in the center. I did not put any glue on the head yet because I wanted to make sure it was where it needed to be first. And then that way, if I had to kind of peel it up really quick, it wasn't trying to get the whole thing off of an entire heart. But that's actually good. And see how that comes in? I think that is just adorable. Now I can put the glue on the back of this head here. And then that way my entire puppy dog is secure onto the heart. I love that. But I'm not putting glue onto the heart in the center because that needs to be free floating and I don't want it to stick to anything. So now I can take my other little puppy dog with the envelope that's bringing it a card, and I can stick that one down. I just think that these little puppies are so cute. Look at them. Yes, yes. And then there we are. Open, open, and then see, they come together. I like that. And then we have our sentiment that goes, like I said, on the front. So I find it easiest to make sure to put glue on the square that the sentiment is going to go and stick to. And then what I do is I take the bottom edge, kind of butt it up against where it needs to be. And then I'm going to go ahead and shut the front of the card. This way, again, I know that the sentiment is positioned where it's going to allow my entire card to shut. So, and I can still have a little wiggle room here if I need to move that over like I just did. But I can make sure that's just squeezed together. And then we have our card that stands up on display and with our puppy. So when it's shut, that's the way it would look. And then they come together when you fully open it. Very cute. I really like that. But now we can work on the front of the panel, the card. And I'm going to start by just sticking some glue onto the back of the rectangle, and then of course I'll put glue onto the heart, and then I want my puppy to go down here. And so I'm trying to make sure that everything is center between the top of the rectangle and the bottom of my puppy. So I just wanted to make sure that it was placed right before I actually stick all of this glue down. Now, had I thought about this, I should have actually maybe pulled out some foam adhesive because of the dimension on the background. It just may make it stick a little bit better. But the glue will work fine. It's just sometimes foam adhesive I find on dimensional backgrounds or elements really works better for whatever reason. I guess maybe the foam gets into the crevices. It beats me. I don't know. That's above my pay grade. Okay, here we are. We've got our rectangle piece on there. It looks like it's on there pretty even. And then I can put my heart. So I'm gonna get, where do I want my heart though on here? Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think I do want it kind of up a little bit. I don't want it crouching my dog too much. And then I'm just going to stick some glue only on pieces that are going to be touching the rectangle. So I'm not going to do anything on the edges on either side because I want it to stay, I don't know, like organic, free floating, I guess, and just have them there. So I think this is actually, the heart is a little wonky, so it's not completely symmetrical, which is actually one thing I really like about it, is that it's not symmetrical, but I like it. So it's, I had to kind of look and make sure at least the point at the bottom was center. And now I can stick my little doggy with the lollipop. It'd be cute if it was a rose, but it's a lollipop. It's a cute lollipop. Again, great set for any kind of card. This could be for a kid's card. You could use those puppies for a puppy loving child. Yeah. And, for their birthday. That'd be a cute little card to make. So there we have the front, and then we have our inside. But I'm thinking, I feel it's a little too much space. So I think I want to put something up there and then at the bottom. So I went through my stash and of that paper pad, and I found that this paper was gone. But I found a similar pattern. So it's a little smaller of a pattern. There's kind of got some lines on it, but at least, it's from the same paper pad and it's similar. The flowers are the same. So that's going to work, and that's what I'm going to use for the extra little hearts that I'm going to cut out. So this is the stitched heart from the set. All right, I've cut out those twice because that's all I needed. And I'm gonna now put away my little scout here. I absolutely like this. I really do. I love it because I can pick it up with one hand and I can just have it behind me and grab it whenever I need to die cut small things like this. And now we can work on placing these last couple elements onto the inside of our card. So I am going to do one heart at the top. I'm just going to get my glue. Yeah, I like it up there. I like that it kind of is going to break up just all of that same pattern that's right there. Yeah, it just is going to kind of add a little extra oomph, I think. And with, oh, I love those two hearts, the heart in the center right here, and then the heart from the puppy coming together. That is just totes adorbs, totes adorbs. Okay, and so yeah, I want to put this one down in this corner. This way I can still have all of this space to write my message, so I'm not losing anything there. I like that. I hope you can see this, but this card turned out so cute. I like that extra, that texture, this dimension right here. I absolutely love that. So cute. And just, yeah. So when we open it, we can see those puppies coming together. That space I can write on. It says our puppy love. We have, I just like how it balanced. I like those extra little elements and how that balanced. Yep. I like that. very cute with the stitching. And so here's our card. That is, can you see the mechanism there though? And how that looks from the top? Cute card. Yep, it lays flat. Very cute card. Yeah, I really like this. I really like the way that this set turned out. I like that pop-up mechanism feature. I like that it can stand on display, but we have our sentiments and very cute. I just thoroughly enjoyed making this card and think it's totally adorable. And for this project, we used these two sets from Pixi Dust Designs. First is this Valentine puppy. So those are those puppies and the sentiments. And then the pop-up card A. And this is their new release. So it's this whole mechanism with the hearts and the rectangles and then the squares. So it has the squares that you can also put on the inside. I like the stitching. I like the extra little detail that that has. And then, yeah, the squares. So if you didn't want to use hearts, you could do squares. And then those would do the same thing as far as like kind of folding out and folding in. And this completes our fun, interactive, cute puppy dog pop-up card. Thank you for joining me. Be sure that you stay notified for more crafty fun in the future. Take care. Bye-bye. Thank you for supporting me by subscribing, liking, commenting, and sharing this video.